I'm expecting to get to know Marissa a little bit more. I've met her a couple times now. Pretty much just in really short bursts around coffee events. So even though we're in a coffee shop and talking about coffee, it'll be really nice to get to know her a little bit more just outside of something that's specifically coffee.
Speaking of, stack it up till it's high as the stars in the skies. Always told to shine bright. You see it in my eyes. We found high among the lows. Yeah, ain't no stopping it, so we don't go. There's no slowing down, no, not right now. Cause the ways of the things that we do, ball hard to hold everyone who here accountable. Speaking of, stack it up till it's high.
So tell me about Oppo. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Well,
Let's talk about the real issue here.
the real issue here, we're eating a cookie. Yeah, I mean, this is like a new space in Atlanta. It opened a few weeks ago, like I think, or a few weeks ago, a month ago, I don't know.
Okay.
But I think something that I like about it is just like, I know a lot of people on the staff. And generally, I think something that they're trying to do is be a space for education.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that looks like yet because they're brand new, but
Oh yeah, I saw
think
the
it'll
training lab. That
Yeah.
looks dope.
so I mean, even then, like already, like they've allowed us to use the training lab for practicing for like comp stuff. But Oppo is really cool because I think, like, staff-wise and all that stuff, they're trying to do better. At least they've taken a little bit of feedback that people have had from, and the frustrations that people have had inside of like Atlanta coffee, and they're kind of like applying like education. And then also just like, I really enjoy the person shop managing. Their name's Enzo, and they're like amazing.
That's really cool. It's always really kind of refreshing to hear when any company is open to feedback, which, as you said about like, you know, something similar, it's kind of sad. That's really good to hear, that even if they're just taking a little bit of feedback and doing little things with it, like, oh, okay, wow, someone's kind of listening at least. Because yeah, like you said, and like exit interviews are like companies just like, oh, so what can we do different? Like, okay, it's you already know, they're just asking because they know that they have to ask.
It's like a formality at that point. It's not a genuine question. So how is Chicago? How have you been? What have you been up to?
I've been planning this and talking about it for a long time. Otherwise, like, I feel like I'm kind of I feel a little bit stagnant. Yeah, like I tried to do this in Chicago, and I just like, I don't know, like I really only talked to one coffee shop owner about it, and they were immediately no. Immediately. Like, okay, like, you know, that's fine, obviously. But it just kind of, I don't know, like that in combination with just this general feeling of kind of what you were talking about, like here in Atlanta, not a real sense of community. Maybe like within a coffee shop, you know, there's the thing where, you know, people really like to say we're like a family. Like, it's really cool here.
Do people still say that up there?
I've heard it a couple times recently. Yeah, I definitely feel like coffee people up there, like baristas and coffee shop owners, they're not really hip to like the changes that are trying to be made, that I know about from being like connecting with people online like yourself. They're not into coffee that much to like learn about it outside of their shop, or learn about the community or the industry outside of their shop. And so that's just, it just makes it hard to connect when you're talking with someone who really thinks that like their shop is like definite, like, I don't know, representative of the world of coffee, or that it should be. it's weird. Like there's other places, other ways to do things, more people to talk to, more ideas.
Yeah. I feel like, I wonder if that's like a broader industry thing too. Because I see that very heavily, like here as well. It just interests me how many shops are like disconnected, or people start shops because they're like, I'm gonna make money, and I'm like, I don't think you understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I've also talked to coffee shop owners who say that they've opened the shop because they want to do something for their community, and these are the same people that, when you really look at what they're doing, they clearly don't know either what their community needs, or they don't really care.
Sometimes it's easier to deal with the people who are more like presenting it.
Yeah.
And then you can make your decisions and be like, whatever.
Yeah, true.
But also I think that like ask the question of like, what is community? And like, what does community look like to people? And like, when businesses and owners say and talk about community, what does that mean?
Yeah, you know what? That's really good. I kind of want to start asking people that, like, if anyone starts talking about, oh yeah, like I want to do what's best for community. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, like who is your community? Because you could be doing well for a community, but what community? Who is the community? How do you do that community work?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I feel like that's a question of like, what does that mean, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's kind of like going back to talking about how can we like fix this like broken mentality we've all kind of adopted. How can we fix white supremacy?
The biggest question ever.
Yeah. It kind of it's kind of interesting to think of working on that by asking people uncomfortable questions, like not just talking about, hey, we need to have the difficult conversation, but just like, you know, the difficult
conversation,
the R word, race. But like, yeah, just kind of like questions that really poke at what they're saying, like specifically, and then like I kind of see it going one of two ways, like either over a long period of time it'll make people like eventually like start to really question their motives, their intents, because they don't have an answer for these questions, or maybe kind of like a weird form of evolution, it will just like people will just figure out the new right thing to say.
Yeah, I think because people just like at some point you can tell who cares and who doesn't. And like I think and a coffee version of this is like when people don't choose to like look into new things either and hold very like still mindsets, but I think that applies to like broader world. But like, so for an example, there was this one time I was talking to it was a separate shop manager from me, like at one of the shops that I was at before. He would come in, like do like pickups from our store, and there's this one day where he was talking about like high elevation coffees, right?
Okay.
I only drink high altitude coffee, and we're like, okay, why? I like looked at him and I was like, why? Why are you saying this? And he was trying to tell like all the staff at that point, like that high altitude coffees were better. And I was like, why are you saying that? And he was like, because like high altitude coffees have just like more data inside of the bean. And I was like, so just because something's grown at like a higher elevation, does that make it good? And then he was like, yeah, like blah, blah. And I said, but what about processing method? And then he was like, oh, and I was like, what about variety? And he was like, oh, and I was like, what about the time and intention that the farms like take to pick those cherries? And then he was like,
ooh,
and then he was like, well, like, whatever. But I think to me that showed like very much like how the mindset of not wanting to move past kind of like things that were comforting to him in that moment.
Yeah, like his training clearly came through. I feel like folks like that stick with what they're taught, and now they're an expert.
Yeah, but I think just in general, it's like I see that in like the broader like world of like people thinking like one way and sticking to that one way versus like then there's a whole other like people who are trying to like push past that one way and like change things and like and they can, I don't think that they like they coexist, but I think one side usually starts becoming the predominant culture.
Okay, yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Part of what led me to like make a coffee account was like I was working as a barista, and I started to feel so lonely. Like I was the only person that I was, I moved around a lot, like different shops, and each time I just seemed to be the only person who seemed to have like a curiosity about coffee, like a real curiosity, instead of, you know, this is what we do here. If you want to know how, like, why we do this, you know, that's cool, but don't ask about anything else.
Yeah.
But also I was like the only person of color. And so the combination of those things, it was just, I don't know, like it was really cool to see sometimes baristas being friends, and, you know, sometimes you could kind of see the family aspect or whatever behind the bar. Rolling my eyes because it's not like ownership also is included, but they're the ones saying, no, we're a family, whatever. So like that was nice, but I never felt like I could be part of it, because I wasn't, like I was interested in different things. I was interested in my job, and understandably, most baristas I've worked with just see it as a job. And, you know, that's a lot of people for a lot of jobs. But yeah, it felt so lonely. So like, I remember like finally, like I was like, I don't know what to do about this. And so one day I Googled Black people coffee. Like I had no idea what to look for, but I came across, I searched a lot of things, and I remember I saved, I think it was 2 sites. I saw something from Michelle Johnson. I saw her blog, and it was like years old. So I read through it. I was like, okay, well, what now? She doesn't have recent stuff. Like, was that it? Is that the only person? Yeah, and then I saw like an article by Phyllis Johnson, or I think maybe it was an interview or something, and she was talking about race and coffee. It's like, oh, okay. So I read all through it like I was hungry, like greedily reading it, and then I was like, oh, okay, another dead end. Like, what else? And so yeah, it took a while to find more people, but I'm glad eventually I did, because I was really, really ready to give up, actually several times.
I understand.
About like on coffee. It's just, yeah. Because like if I can't, coffee's fascinating, but if I can't like really connect or talk with anyone about it, is it worth it?
Yeah, but you're showing up in the space, and like you're someone who's very, you have a lot of insights that are very personable, and I think just watching how you've grown and like transformed in the past few years has been really like a gift to be able to see. And so like,
nice.
Yeah, no, but I'm being sincere, like, and thinking about it, it's just like, there's someone out there who's like looking for the same things that you were looking for, and they'll find you, and they'll find people who are building that space, and like I think that's really amazing to be able to see.
Well, I think that's a good place to stop. That's really nice. Thank you.
Never know who's trailing you, hoping to get familiar with the ways of the things that we do. Ball hard and hold everyone who here accountable. Speaking up, stack it up till it's high as the stars in the skies. Always told to shine bright. You see it in my eyes. Ooh, we found high among the lows. Yeah. Ain't no stopping it, so we don't go. There's no slowing down, no, not right now. Cause the ways of the things that we do. Ball hard and hold everyone who here accountable. Speaking up, stack it up till it's high as the stars in the skies. Always told to shine bright. You see, yeah. I've been starting with the one looking.
I think the art has become like a really safe space for us, but then also one that it feels like we're gonna be able to like move together and like move forward with things, because it's just been fun, but also really, really, really hard. Hard in like a way where it's like, so we all relate on the fact that working in shops and stuff like that, we've all had experiences of people not either respecting us, whether it be customers or like managerial people or whatnot, or like staff. Also underestimating the skills that we have. So we've all, and like not investing in the curiosity and love for coffee. So I think we've all had those shared experiences, which sucks. And I think being able to relate on that, you know, it's a challenging and frustrating thing, but I think what we're starting to build things that feel very communal.
Okay.
So put the beans in.
Cool. First step.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're roasting some coffee, but we're doing a sample roast, so just like a smaller amount. This is around 100 grams of coffee. It's a naturally processed Myanmar coffee, so I started the temperature at a little bit lower for a natural process because they have like a bunch of sugar and like fruit stuff on the outside, so I want the inside and the outside to cook at similar, roast at similar temperatures, so then they're like relatively even, and so the outside doesn't like char super quickly. But yeah, it's going through its processes right now. I only have one curve on here because I broke one of my probes. Dun, dun, dun. But you can smell it changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with naturally processed coffees, I feel like they end up smelling like, you can smell like if you get close, you can smell like the fruitiness, but also like kind of like it's a little funky and yeasty. Interesting.
Yeah. I remember, so trying to cook
coffee. I mean, that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Trying to do it at home on, with a little ceramic thing on the stovetop. It was like, I remember I had never smelled, before I bought that, and I bought some green coffee up on Amazon first, and I was like, I'd never smelled green coffee, and so I was like, oh wow, that's like really powerful. It didn't smell anything like, not really, what you had, which smells better. And then as it roasted, it was like just it continued to smell really grassy. I was like, am I doing it right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't know.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, you probably were doing it completely correctly.
The first batch, yeah, didn't taste very good, and then someone suggested it's probably because you got them off Amazon, and so then I went and got different green coffee, and it actually tasted like it was decent. And then someone sent me some green coffee of theirs plus the roasted version. And so I got to compare. I was like, oh, my palate is not the most, I don't know, proficient.
You have a good palate.
Thanks. But I can't even really tell much of a difference between like this and what I roasted. I know there has to have been some difference because I did not have like, a roaster.
You're applying heat though.
Yeah.
Apply heat.
But it was really cool.
That's awesome.
To be able to do, yeah. And like I didn't have a pro reading, but I got a temp gun, and so I was tracking every 30 seconds the temp. I was trying to make my own little chart. It was fun.
Marissa, how did you learn how to roast?
I learned how to roast through GlitterCat, actually.
Oh, that was your first time?
That was my first time.
Oh, that's awesome.
So stovetop roasting.
Okay.
And then kind of like I thought at some point in time that like there is a white man out there who has done this. So why can't I do it? But also like just having to break down the fear of roasting, I guess. And then knowing that, again, it's all about taste. So I learned during GlitterCat like how to do the stovetop roasting, and that was fun. It was also very stressful because I was like, I can't make like a medium roast. How am I gonna make that and a dark roast like when I've never done it before? So that was fun. But then right after that, I just continued to develop, like do palate and sensory development by tasting a bunch of coffee and then eating a bunch of food and then writing down a lot of notes. Because I was like, if I can learn what coffee tastes like, oh, first crack. So. I'll let you know when. Oh. Just like another. $30 seconds? I'm gonna go. Alright, and then I'm gonna cool it in here. Well, typically I would have something to stir it with, but I don't have that today, so it'll just kind of sit. Okay, so it went through the first crack, which is like at that point where coffee is like, I don't know, going from holding all of its like CO2 to being like LOL. And so it's letting out all the gases and stuff, and so it sounds like popcorn. And then after that, I'm just letting it, or I let it develop a little bit longer, for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, really just depends. Didn't want to go too much with this, but then after that, this is just in here to cool it. Because like bigger roasters will have that rotating arm that does the cooling. Yeah. But I'm not a bigger roaster. I have this thing that has a fan under it.
Nice. It smells really good. Like, I feel like if I did not know, I don't know, I can tell that I like the smell because I've been around coffee, like just been around it. And so I really like when the differences in smell, like throughout like stages. Yeah, if I was still a non-coffee drinker, I would not probably enjoy this, but it's
a very interesting smell. Yeah. So we can like
sweetness.
Yeah, and that's from like the sugar caramelization and all that. I'm gonna dump this into a tray.
Okay. So when can we try it?
I mean, we could try it now. Like if we wanted to cup it, we could cup it. It might just be weird.
Yeah, I want to though.
Okay, we can do it. We can definitely do it.
Okay. Smells so fresh.
What does that mean?
Like really strong. Clearly freshly ground. It's still like a little bit what comes across to me as like earthy, grassy. Yeah. It's almost like I would describe like it as like this sweet earth, like the sweetness of the earth.
I like that.
Yeah, it's very enjoyable for me.
No, I got it. Thank you.
And that bubbling effect you talked about when like you're brewing like a fresh coffee, I actually really like that too. It looks fascinating when you can see it change or bubble up or froth as you're pouring water over it. I always get slightly disappointed when I mean, it's not like a quality of good coffee or anything, but I get disappointed when it doesn't happen, when I don't see the bubble.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
I like it too. I think it looks cool.
Yeah.
I can see what you mean about the sweet earth.
Yeah. It seems like you smell kind of like people slurp, which is that a technique?
Yes, actually. So the reason why I smell like that is there's this, and I opened my mouth a little bit. There's like that concept of retronasal olfaction, where like your nose and mouth basically work together. And so I tried to like smell and like have that like go through.
Yeah.
And cycle. So like I can, and with the short sniffs, you're able to get like it like disperse in a different way.
Okay. Oh, see, I haven't heard that. That's fascinating. So what's a reason that you would want to sample roasts?
So sample roasting gives like a good gauge of like what the coffee is doing at a smaller scale. So like I think if I were to get this coffee, for example, and like get a whole ton of it, like I wouldn't want to like just roast everything at one time, not knowing what the coffee's going to do. So sample roasting is a good way to test things and experiment and like understand what the coffee's doing without doing a ton of waste. And then also just knowing like you can change different things about it. So I like sample roasting to also like quality control and like know what's happening.
Yeah. So I've noticed some coffees when I cup, the grounds, like there might be a lot of grounds at the top and some seem to the bottom more. That seems to be, from what I noticed, like an effect of the roast. Is it also effect of the freshness of it? Does that change?
Yeah, I think it could be a combination of both. So like when they're fresher, they're gonna hold together more because of the CO2. And then they usually won't break before it's time, like the crust area. But I would say also, depending on how light the roast is, sometimes the lighter the roast is, the more easily the crust just breaks on its own rather than like you having to do it.
Okay.
So sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's just a thing to notice.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes also I've like, I like, especially early cupping, I'll like bump the table, then some of the grounds fall, and I thought, oh no, did I mess it up? Because I was like, oh, I feel like it's supposed to stay up top, because you do the whole process of taking it out. So I thought I was like, so I'd always like be really careful about moving around the table. But then, yeah, I found out that, oh, okay, no, it doesn't really
affect
matter.
it too much. I mean, it's just like brewing, right? Like this is just another form of brewing coffee. Immersion brew. And then we're just like stopping the brew and then waiting for it to not be too hot.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, wait, I'm gonna break these.
Okay.
Crust, do you wanna break one?
Sure.
Oh, it smells so good. Okay, maybe I'm okay with the fact that we're like cupping this right after.
Oh man. Yeah, I like it.
We'll see.
Pretty much any time I get to like try coffee in a different state than say like what I'm used to or what I would maybe get in a coffee shop, I'm excited, because I feel like that's one way that you can know, I don't know, like just learn more about coffee, like taste it when it's bad, taste it when it's great, taste it when it's in between stages. That's yeah, and of course just the general fascination I have with it, the fact that it can be different all the time.
Yes.
I don't do a good job doing this.
No, you're good. Yeah, but we'll just wait. And then I did 2 of them so we can taste the difference between the cups.
Okay.
Because they'll just inherently be they might be a little bit different. And so like if I were assessing this on like a bigger scale, then like we would taste uniformity and understand. Mostly because I think that would also, it also helps knowing like what the coffee is doing on a grander scale instead of in just one cup.
Okay.
So for example, like I think it would be helpful in terms of like there's some coffees that have like potato defect, right? And potato defect can be in like one seed and then, or multiple. And so you just have to taste and see what the coffee's doing.
Okay. So I've heard that, but I don't really know what it is, potato defect.
It literally is just when there's just like some of the coffee tastes like potatoes.
Okay. Is that similar to Quakers?
I think just like it is based off of like how it's like nourished or whatever, but it's not, I guess it would be similar, but not the same.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't know what causes it.
Have you ever tried like defects that like you think taste good?
So here's one that I think is very challenging for me because I think a defect that's commonly found in coffee is ferment. Like over ferment or something that might be a little bit more funky. I'm actually not very mad at that.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason why is because I love fermented foods. So it's good to know, at least on my end, if I were to ever be like Q certified or whatever. But I know that it's a bias that I have just because like it's a very familiar kind of like taste to me.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like that's not necessarily familiar to me, but I really like it in coffees. I think that's why I'm drawn to like anaerobic coffees. There might be other processing methods that like I don't know, come out more fermenty. But that was my first experience with like a fermenty coffee was an anaerobic. I was like, ooh, that's funky.
So there's that, and then there's just like over ferment. Really, it depends. But I know that I have to maintain that and like understand that bias, I guess. And I've actually talked to a lot of like other Asian coffee professionals about this too, and they're like, yeah, I actually don't mind the ferment, but it's very common in a lot of like our foods, so I think it makes sense to me. But it's not necessarily like when I've tasted it just like very presently in coffee, it's not like terrible. There's things that have made my face go ugh. Okay, all right, I'm gonna taste it.
Yeah, I'd be really curious to.
Oh wait, that's actually real good.
I knew it.
Wait, I want this coffee. Oh, that's so pleasant. Wow. I really like it's very fruit forward. That has like a nice dark chocolatey kind of like body to it, or like under, like lower notes. Wow!
I'm really enjoying this too. My first impression was that like this was a little tangier, but now I'm trying to like see if that is actually my right or consistent for me.
Yeah, I really like how the acidity is present in here, but it's not too overbearing. I think it has some of the nice like red fruit qualities of like that I would expect from a natural coffee, but it also has like a nice like cleanliness to it. And also like I think I can really taste like the earthy kind of like origin characteristics that I would expect out of a lot of like Asian coffees.
Yeah.
But it definitely comes in later. Like I think something that I think is cool about this coffee, I feel like it could, if someone wasn't super familiar with coffee and like, but had like a preconceived notion of like Asian coffees, like I think that if they tasted this, they would think it's like a South American coffee.
Okay. Interesting.
But that's my perception of it.
Can you tell us a little bit about Tame Brown, kind of piggybacking with what you were just saying about Asian coffees? People's perception?
Yeah. I don't know.
I thought it kind of went together.
Yeah, I guess it does. I mean, that's how I like to source coffees anyway. I guess.
Yeah, that. How do you source your coffees?
Well, I specifically look for I have a focus in Asian coffees. So for me, I think I look for different processes, I guess, that would not be super common to growing regions, or find really good representations of like what coffee processing would be there, or look for like co-ops and different people who are doing things for the farms and like in those areas. Recently, I mean, it's difficult for a small like roaster to do really anything, but I've been trying to work with companies and with people who like align with like my visions, I guess.
Yeah.
And try to have like more focus on highlighting both like, I don't know, I like to highlight both like flavor of different things, but then also moreover just like highlighting the fact that there are really amazing coffees that are grown in Asia. They're just not highlighted as much within the specialty kind of scope. So that's something that I really enjoy doing with Tan Brown, especially because like my first introduction to Asian coffee was in a shop, and the only thing that they would say about it is like, oh, it just tastes like herbs. I don't like it. Sometimes it smells like weed. And I'm like, oh no.
That's the worst.
And that's like the only context that anyone would give to me, instead of like saying that there are more out there. And so for me, I would only hear about like Sumatran coffees. And it would just be like a broad like statement about Sumatra itself, but not necessarily about like Indonesia or Asia in terms of like coffee.
Okay.
So it's just fascinating to me to see and like have like gone into this world of like Asian specialty coffee to learn more and take time to like taste, I guess, and see that like complexity and like earthiness is not always a bad thing. Like it doesn't have to be. For a lot of people, it's very comforting, and it's a very like a lot of the coffees are very approachable, and like relatively pleasant. So I really like having that experience. I think for me, I really like, because I don't know, I think in the grand scheme of things, when people taste coffee and when people are welcome into like the specialty world, they're so quick to say like, oh, fruity, bright, blah, 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 acid bomb, which is fine. And I really enjoy coffees like that. Like that is probably like my bias and preference. But I know that about myself, right? But I know that Asian coffees don't highlight that all the time. But like, I think to me, so like, I know that Asian coffees don't focus very heavily on like the super high acid and brightness and like all those types of things. But I think what's interesting is like the base notes that are there. There is like a very heavy complexity in like being able to take apart and understand spices and like what specific like I don't know, like chocolates and like all these things in there. But there's also always like I don't know, there's like lightly floral kind of things and qualities that I taste, but a lot of like herbiness that's not unpleasant. Like I really love the concept of umami, and I don't think it's expressed enough in coffees, but it's also like something where I'll talk to different like Asian coffee professionals, and something that makes me really excited is when they're like, oh yeah, when I first started to taste coffee, like I would talk about like umami qualities and like how things taste like miso or soy sauce, and like how there are very familiar flavors, but then people would say, don't say that, that's a bad quality. But then it's like umami is part of like what we taste, and it's interesting to me to see that quality show up in coffees, but then also see like and feel like very connected to the coffees themselves, and like know that they don't have to be like super inaccessible for people to enjoy them. Because I know that a lot of people will also say things like, I don't want my coffee to taste like battery acid. And it's like, okay, great. Well, this won't. But then it's interesting to see like coffee bros think that the only complexity is in things that they can perceive and that they're familiar with in terms of like fruits, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, why is that the only thing that you can like perceive and think about as complex? And so I think this has challenged me in a way to also break my preconceived notion and like internalized racism, I guess, about like coffee and things like that, and the things that I've like learned that were wrong,
Yeah.
that aren't actually true.
Yeah.
So I think sourcing specifically Asian coffees has been really fun and also challenging.
Yeah, that's super interesting. When I first tried some of your tan brown coffee, I remember my first thought was like, I've never tasted a coffee like this before, and I couldn't even think of how to describe it, which made me like really fascinated by it. I was like, oh my gosh, what flavors am I missing from my palate that I can't describe this coffee? And it was such a like fascinating and good quality to me that I needed to really search my brain to figure out how to describe it. Like my first thought was like savory, but like I knew it was just like, I don't know, some kind of like limitation that I hadn't, I don't know, like a level I haven't reached yet.
Was the first, you tried the West Java, that was the one? Or was that a different one?
It was a big, it wasn't labeled or anything. It was a big brown bag.
Oh, it was from Coffee Fest, yeah?
Yeah.
That was the West Java.
Okay, West
so
Java.
I love that coffee. It's one of like my favorite ones. And the reason why I think it's so cool is because it has like a level of hoppiness to it, too, to add to like the savory. But it's fascinating, and it tastes like when it's iced, it tastes almost like a non-alcoholic beer, which is really weird. But that was a cool thing of that coffee.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
Yeah. I also really like the blend that you did because you used part of that coffee with other like coffees, and I think you used part of Mikey's coffee as well in there.
Yeah.
And I just remember I was like, I tasted it. I was like, whoa, this is so cool to like taste everything together. I really
Nice.
like the blends that you make.
Thanks. That's so nice. Because I really enjoy it, and so I always like want to like know if other people like would enjoy it, but I don't feel like I don't get a lot of opportunities to like share it and affirm that I know what I'm doing. But I'm like, wow, this tastes amazing. I wish I could share this.
I think people write off blends really quickly and just say that it's like it's whatever, and people just like mix things together. But I think having a very intentioned blend is really important. And I think that you're really good at crafting those.
Thanks. Yeah, it's I've heard a lot of people be like, the reason blends are bad is because it doesn't honor the farmer or whatever. I'm like, my first thought was, is that what they're thinking about? Like they're thinking about whatever white bro in America is gonna like, if they're gonna mix their beans with other beans, isn't like, I feel like more things are important, or other things are more important.
I'm like, I feel like I have so many things to say to that statement.
Go ahead.
Because it's like, okay, if they're thinking about like, oh, don't do blends because you're not honoring the farmer, it's like, okay, well, are you honoring the farmer by buying from who are you buying from, right? Or like, can you trace it back to the farmer? And that's like, and there's a privilege in traceability. And it's just like, okay, well, have you tasted this coffee with the farmer? Do you know how like all those types of things? And I'm like, there's like different levels of it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I think that if people were to say those statements, it's kind of like minimizing possibilities to also highlight different qualities of a coffee that could inherently celebrate the work that a farmer is doing.
Yeah, okay.
But I think part of that is in honoring blends and like the intention behind it, or should be intention.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah. Oh. Sorry, you can't casually catch my attention. I'm gonna like, what?
Oh.
Hand it to you.
Oh, I have something for you.
Wow.
This is for you.
A gift.
It's a gift.
I'm so. Wow. What is it?
It's a blend.
Great.
It's a blend that I, of course, had like made with you in mind. So, one of my impressions of you is bright, and this is an obvious one, mate, because of your hair, but colorful. So, I was going for a blend that was bright, and in my opinion, when I tasted it, it tasted colorful. So, I mean...
Wait, I'm gonna smell it.
Okay.
I'm so excited. Can I open it? Oh, I can.
Okay.
Oh, it smells so good.
Can
Oh my gosh.
It actually has 2 of your coffees in
Oh,
it.
really?
And 2 others, yeah.
It kind of smells like you know when you get like if you go to a candy shop area, like
Yeah.
you get like gummies inside of it smells
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
gummies in the bag.
Okay. Yeah.
It smells really good.
That sounds like an effect that I was kind of going for. Yes.
Great. It's very comforting. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, let me know
Wow.
what you think whenever you
I'm
have
going to love
time.
it. I think even just
You don't have to love it, but
No,
Okay.
I will though. I already love it.
Okay.
Just the fact that you took the time to do this.
okay. Well, good. It has I'm trying to think. Oh, never mind. I think I'm about to make something up.
Oh, there's some big beans in here. Is this like a pacamara?
No, not a Pacmara.
Mm.
I don't remember the varietal.
That is totally okay.
Okay.
That's so cool. Wow, so cool.
Cool.
Wow, on the topic of blends.
Right? Well done, Crystal. You slide it in there. Sorry, I couldn't be natural about it.
No, it's all good. Nice.
Man, so tell me if I'm wrong. This one, like, I feel like it comes off as more like a little lighter, maybe a little sweeter,
Okay.
a little brighter.
Yeah. I
I
can
get
see
more
that.
of the earthiness in this one. I mean, obviously they're both delicious because the same coffee, but man,
Yeah.
usually my like how much I like a coffee very often, not always, dramatically decreases as it cools. Like I don't often like the bright acidity that starts to come out more in cooler coffee. That might be like a palate development thing, I don't know. But
It's your preference.
yeah, thanks. But I'm like fully enjoying both of these still so
Yeah,
far.
they're very balanced. I think both of them are extremely balanced, which I find really nice about this coffee.
Yeah.
And I would definitely want to drink a cup of this once it's like chilled for a little bit.
Yeah,
I
this
wanna
is
know.
so good.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get over, like, it's cool now and I still like it just as much. That never happens.
That's awesome.
I feel like I
Heh.
yeah.
We just roasted it.
Right.
Roasted it, cooled it.
Man, that's why
did
like
the
I don't.
thing.
Yeah. When people talk about freshness of coffee, I don't know, like it's interesting to hear about because there's still like, you know, technical stuff and like data stuff that you can get from learning about how coffee changes and what is ideal or what ideal freshness or whatever. But it's interesting to me because that never seems to matter to my palate. Like I generally either like it or I don't. I can taste differences with and like the same coffee that I've had. If I like wait a month or something, like might taste a little different. But if I like it, like I like it. I'm not gonna suddenly not like it when it's old.
I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm curious about how or if that'll change for me personally as I keep, you know,
As you
staying in
taste more
coffee.
coffees?
Yeah, I taste
Yeah.
more coffees.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like right now, I don't know. People when I hear, oh, you know, I want to wait a little bit because this was like roasted yesterday or whatever. Like I don't care. Give it to me.
Totally fair.
Let me try it. See
I
what
think
it's like.
I like tasting at different stages to understand what the coffee's doing. I think that if this one rests longer, it'll bring out more sweetness, which I think would be really nice.
Okay.
But tasting it right after, like, and knowing how it like reacted, I think it's a good coffee. Might have to think about that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever you do with this coffee, if you could let me know because
100%,
I know I
definitely
want
will.
it already. Okay. Cool.
Cool.
Yeah. Wrap.
So what's available, not a lot of shit. What you gonna do for it? Anything I mean? Type of dedication you gotta have as you're blazing the path. Never know who trailing you, hoping to get familiar with the ways of the things that we do. Ball hard and hold everyone who you accountable. Speaking up, stack it up till it's high as the stars in the skies. Always told to shine bright. You see it in my eyes. Who we found high among the lows. Yeah. Ain't no stopping it, so we don't go. There's no slowing down now.